This is the rhythm of change. This is the sound of redemption. This is the way that we bring it down. Down, down, 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 down. Igniting the fire within you. Exalting the melody of freedom. These are the things that will bring it down. Down, down, 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 down. So gather the faithful. Tell everyone to stand and shout loud. Shout loud. Shout loud. Let's bring it down. Let's bring it way down. Let's bring it down. Let's bring it down, down. Let's bring it down. Let's bring it way down. Let's bring it down. Let's bring it down, down. Down, down, down.
Let me tell you, it's in the air. Joy is in the air. Love is in the air. Can you feel it? What it feel like? Freedom. What it feel like? Don't sleep on it, brother. You might get left, sister. Can you feel it? What it feel like? Freedom. What it feel like? Justice. No need to be counted, cause I am down. Down, down, down. Down, down, down. Down for the end of racism, for the end of bigotry, cause I am down. For the end of misogyny, that's right. For all the isms out there, just down, down, down. Let's bring it down. Rise up, people. No more foolishness, and let's bring it way down.
Riding the river of change into the cries of contrition. This is the way that we bring it down. Down, down, 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 down. We are the children of Eden, dancing and celebrating freedom. We are the ones that must bring it down. Down, down, 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 down. So gather the faithful. Tell everyone to stand and shout loud. Shout loud. Shout loud. Let's bring it down. Let's bring it way down. Let's bring it down. Let's bring it down, down. Let's bring it down. Let's bring it way down. Let's bring it down. We've got to bring it down. Down. Stand up and shout. Stand up and shout. Rise together.
Accountability starts now. The Eric Dawson Radio Show.
Yeah. Rise up. Stand up, shouting loud.
If you are not prepared to come to that table and to represent that voice, don't come. Because we don't need any more brown faces that don't want to be a brown voice. We don't need black faces that don't want to be a black voice. We don't need Muslims that don't want to be a Muslim voice. We don't need queers that don't want to be a queer voice. And if you're worried about being marginalized and stereotyped, please don't even show up.
stay the at home. The Rona is spreading. This is no joke. It's no time to work or roam. The way you can fight it is simple, my friends. Just stay the at home. Now, technically, I'm not a doctor, but mother listen when I read a poem. So here I am, Sam Jackson, imploring you, keep your ass at home. If you want things to get back to normal, don't panic. Just use your dome. Wash your hands, stop touching your face, and stay the at home. Motherfucker, it's no time to gamble. Look around, you're not at a casino. Just stay the home as if your name was Trenton Quarantino. Sure, you can still see your friends. Use the mother app on your phone. But unless you just ran out of groceries, please stay the at home. Thank you for doing your part to flatten the curve, because that is steep. And now that you're home, please feel free to go the to sleep. The end.
To another episode of the Eric Dawson Radio Show in the age of COVID-19. I'm here with Vincent Squire, who's on the phone. Good morning, Vincent.
Hey, good morning, Eric. Good morning, world. How's everybody doing this fine, wonderful Thursday morning?
Yeah. You know, Vincent, as the Sam Jackson piece was playing, something came through my feed, and it was from Darren Martin. He shared a video that's happening live now, and it's at Jackson Funeral Residence of Jersey City. Viola Richardson, who I think was it says former councilwoman Viola Richardson. It's her funeral, and they're, in the age of COVID-19, right? They're Facebook living the funeral right now, and they have the camera like aimed at the casket, and because they can't have people gathering in large groups for the funeral. And so, I mean, this video is a stark reminder that we are far from out of the woods with respect to this novel coronavirus. So I want to offer my prayers and condolences and sympathy to the Richardson family, and to all of the other families out there who are suffering right now, who are trying to figure out how to cope emotionally with what's going on. It is truly devastating. But there was a whole lot of light stuff that I was going to talk about. I was going to talk about my barbecue chicken that I made last night and my coconut rice. Well, I should still talk about my barbecue chicken and coconut rice, Vincent, because it was amazing.
Yeah, look, man, I keep talking to you. I'm gonna have to socially distance myself from the refrigerator.
It was fantastic, and I will tell people, one of my, kind of like Oprah. Remember Oprah used to do my favorite things?
Yeah.
One of my favorite things is that Costco rotisserie chicken. Now, I don't have a Costco account. I got a BJ's account. And BJ's chicken is not as like plump, juicy, and flavorful as the Costco chicken is. I think they're about the same price. Costco might be a tiny bit less expensive. But with Costco, you get this big chicken, man. And it's flavorful, Vincent. It's succulent. And you can go and get a raw chicken, but you can get a raw chicken for the same price that you get a cooked chicken, right? So it makes sense to just go get the chicken. Anyway, I get it. I don't get it. I have my mom, she's got a Costco account, so whenever she makes a Costco run, and now that she's a senior citizen, she gets to do that early morning run at Costco where they open it up just for the seniors, and she grabs she grabs a chicken for me and leaves it on my porch. She's like, she's kind of doing her version of a chicken in every pot kind of thing, and so. So I take this chicken, man, and I throw it in I dice it up, cube it up, and everything, and then I put it in a pan with some olive oil, some truffle, extra virgin olive oil, some truffle oil, some garlic, some caramelized onions, Vincent. Then I just cook the chicken down a little bit more, and I make my barbecue sauce, and I put the barbecue sauce there and just cook it down some more, and I make a big pot of coconut rice, and I am set for a couple of days. So that's what I did last night, and that was it, man. That was it.
Well, thank God you have that metabolism where you can eat like that. See, I'd be like 270 hanging around you.
But listen, I before we came on air, I told you that I got some bananas that are going bad, and I need to make a banana bread. But I can't find any raisins, people. So I'm willing to barter. If somebody's nearby me, well, you got to know me too, because I'm not just going to give you my address. But if you know me and you're nearby, and you can bring me a box of raisins, I'll make you a loaf of banana bread today. There you go. I just need raisins. I can't find raisins. I went to the Stop and Shop. I went to a ShopRite. We went to Aldi's. Can't find raisins. I don't know what it is. I ordered some on Amazon, but they won't be here until the 15th of May. I did. I ordered a thing of raisins. Cost me $8, man. It's just crazy. I don't understand it, Vincent. Anyway. So the title of today's show, and there are a bunch of things that we can talk about, but I'm going to try to wrap it all back around into this whole idea of surveillance technology versus personal privacy in the age of COVID-19, right? There are these talks about these drones and other kinds of things. I was watching Judge Napolitano on Fox News today talking about civil liberties being violated. But Vincent, here's my question. When do your personal, what you believe to be your personal liberties and rights, when do the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the one, right? So we've determined that in our country, freedom of speech. But then we said you can't go into a crowded theater and yell bomb or yell fire, right? So you have freedom of speech, but there's an understanding that there's a caveat that says when your freedom of speech violates somebody else's safety, you no longer have it, right? So when we talk about civil liberties, we talk about freedoms, when are we crossing that line where your supposed freedom becomes an impediment on my safety? And then where should the government then step in? And so when we look at all of this surveillance, so the government says, hey, look, we've got this highly contagious virus that's out here, and we, based on science, are saying that it is transmitted in these different ways. And so what we're saying is that you need to socially distance. And then you have people who say, well, I don't want to. It's my right to be able to go outside and walk on the sidewalk that I want to walk on and do what I want to do. And if I don't want to wear a face mask, I don't have to wear one, or gloves. I don't have to do that, right? And we talk on the show about not being able to legislate stupid. But we can criminalize some behavior, right? Especially when we look and say that behavior is putting the community at risk, and then to be able to surveil that behavior to make some determinations about what some people are doing. I mean, it's sensitive, but where's that line?
Well, legally, the line comes into draw, like you said, with your freedom of speech. Your civil liberties, the line is drawn when your civil liberties encroach on the health, welfare, and safety of others. I mean, here is the thing. Let's take it from the history of actual surveillance. I mean, we have a level of surveillance. We've had drones before they became the micro drones that are popular now, that would fly over certain areas, and with face recognition, before it became public, it was actually a police secret service thing, where they would take a picture of known people who did some miscreant behavior and follow them around, catching them in the act. And even the FBI would take a picture of you in their surveillance and follow you around, take a picture of who you were in contact with, and investigate them as well. So, criminal activity is one thing that comes into mind. You look at the situation with the terrorism. We've had multiple, excuse me, we've had multiple bombings in our country, and multiple shootings, mass destruction of life and liberty. And what they found is that, America is not reactional because America is reactional and not proactional because we're reactional. Because we don't violate people's civil liberties. We're proactional because we look at the patterns that people have done, and we keep that model in place. And when we see people exhibiting that model, then the flag goes up, and they actually look at them and their activities. Because your civil liberties, you are now a potential criminal. But you look at that pendulum sometimes.
But what they're saying is this, Vincent. They're saying, well, if you have a crowd of people that are walking in the street, and now you've got these drones that are flying over, and they're monitoring body temperatures. They're monitoring now in the technology, or what they're saying is that the drone, for instance, will not target in on an individual, but moreover take the temperature of the crowd in general, right? But the technology is there for it to target in at 100 and almost 200 feet in the air, to target in on an individual and to do face recognition as well as determine that person's body temperature. And so the question that Judge Neapolitano was asking, or the statement that he made, was that it was not only a violation of rights, but it was a violation in terms of an illegal search.
Well, you could say illegal search, and you can always use the precedence of Terry versus Ohio and the Supreme Court case of illegal search, or basically being in the wrong place at the wrong time, or the wrong person at the wrong place at the wrong time. But none of that actually comes into play. In terms of the coronavirus, the drones are basically used to take temperatures of people who are extremely hot, which means that they have some symptoms of either they're carrying plutonium or they're sick. So there's not that much violation of a civil liberty. It's either, keeping somebody from mass destruction of a bomb, or keeping somebody from mass destruction of carrying a deadly disease.
Well, that's exactly how I'm looking at it, Vincent, that, these people, knowingly or unknowingly, are concealing, right, a potentially deadly virus. And especially in this time where we're talking about opening up the government, open up the economy rather, we don't know who's carrying it and who's not. And so for us to be certain, if in fact you want the economy to open up, it's only going to open fully, right? And in a healthy way if consumers feel comfortable. If I don't feel comfortable knowing that, you know, 90% or 95% of people walking down the street are healthy, then I'm not going to walk down the street. If I don't believe that 95% of the people who are in this restaurant that you want me to go in are healthy, I'm not going to go in the restaurant. And so if the gate and to leave it up to the individual to tell you that they're healthy isn't comfortable for me, right? To me, there needs to be something else. So
So you're saying you don't trust your fellow man's word?
no, I'm telling you. Well, because understand this, they can be for the most part asymptomatic. Secondly, they may have a slight fever, but otherwise feel okay and say, "Oh, I just don't feel well." But they have not assigned the symptom related to COVID-19, right? They just say, "I don't feel well, but I'm just going to go out to the store, or I'm just going to go and get this bite to eat. I'm going to just stop in and get some takeout, or I got to pick up some milk at the store," right? And then we talked about how it spreads exponentially. So if these stores, for instance, now this is a little different because you choose to go into the store. So if the store had some sort of monitoring device similar to a metal detector that you walk through to determine your temperature, right? Then that's something that you just have to deal with, because when you go in that store, they have surveillance cameras, right? So you've opted to go in there. But on the street itself, I'm concerned because some folks go to public places like parks and other kinds of things, right, where people gather, and they may be infected, and then they may wind up infecting other people. So, I hear the conversation on the one side about civil liberties, but then on the other side, it's about safety and common sense. And for me, the line, Vincent, is drawn where we have elected officials who are looking out for our best interests. So that's what it always comes down to me, right? So the law.
We don't have elected officials looking
out
for our best interests.
So to me, there is where the paranoia is. It is not that we shouldn't be protected or we shouldn't feel comfortable be able to go out. It's that we don't trust our politicians, right? But we are the ones who have the power to elect them. And so if we did a better job electing politicians who had a track record of caring about us, right? And if we held the proverbial knife to their neck that said, "Hey, listen, if you fall out of line, then we're going to vote you out of office." If we did that, if the dog wagged the tail as opposed to it being the other way around, then we'd be less paranoid about laws that are being put in place to maybe protect us.
Well, we would. But you look at some of the technology that we have today, because the drones that you're talking about, that they're talking about using, are smaller, and you can't see them from 500 feet up in the air. With digital zoom, that you can look from 500 feet in the air and tell what time it is from looking at someone's watch on the ground. But the technology that they're using for what they're talking about now in Japan and China, the police have face shields that have thermal scans that detect people of temperatures over 102, which is part of the symptom of the virus. So, it's not that invasive in terms of health and safety. It's not, it's not them going into your house or following you and following you and, peeping through your window while you're having sex with your wife. It's nothing like that. So generally people who are raising the fuss are doing one of two things. Either looking to hide their dirt or grandstand for position.
Yeah. So here's the question I want to ask people who are listening to the show, and I could pull up my feed today because I'm not using the video technology to bring Vincent on the screen, so I could read your comments. Under what circumstances are you saying, under zero circumstances, would you be comfortable with this? So before the show, I looked up some of the deadliest viruses or diseases that we've encountered. And one of the one that came up in the 14th and 15th centuries was the plague, right? And it said the mortality rate was 9%. My question to you is this: if that was where we were now, and you had people who said, well, I've got a right not to wear a mask if I don't want to. I've got a right to go outside. I want to protest this shelter in place. Would a disease, would a 9% mortality rate be enough for you to say, you know what, somebody needs to come in and begin to legislate stupid? Like at what point, right? Because there's got to be a threshold where you look and say, you know what, if it got to this, where you had this level of contagion, and leading scientists and doctors were talking about a mortality rate of 9 or 10 or 12% if people walked outside. But then in this free country, people can choose to walk outside. At some point, you have to say that we have to be able to regulate that by law.
See, in terms of regulation and coming into play, you have to look at the mindset of people. Joseph Stalin said that if in the event of something happening, if one person dies, it's a tragedy. Right. More than one, it becomes a statistic. So with that in mind, we're already at a statistic of lives being lost foolishly. And we've talked about the foolishness that led us to this. And so not going to revisit that. But you have to actually look at, people really want their civil liberties to be looked after and cared for when the tragedy hits home. Nobody cries about, we need to toughen up gun laws and until a member in their family gets shot. Right. Nobody is crying about the opioid crisis until, one of their family members overdose. Sure. Everybody, homosexuality was a taboo and hush-hush word until now members of our family start, coming out of the closet. So, it's always somebody else's problem until it's now in your backyard or in your house.
Well, here's the challenge for me. So I'm reading the thread, and thank you for putting it in here, Dre Sandra. He says, Eric, it's ridiculous that you think they will only use it for good. I don't think they're going to use it for good. That's what I just said, right? That we have a bunch of untrustworthy politicians in office right now who are being led by their noses by lobbyists who work for these special interests, right? Whether we're talking about the oil or pharmaceutical, all of them, we can list them all. And I'll agree with you on all that you put on your list. But I'm saying, so we now need to step up and do something, right? If we recognize that, look, if you owned a store and every day you came in and the cash register was empty, there was no money in the cash register, but goods were sold. Right? You realize that the stuff was sold in the store, but you got no money in the cash register. And then the next day, like you don't fire your cashier, right? You keep your cashier there. And then the next day you have no money in the cash register. And then you go home and you complain that, man, they're stealing. And then your wife or your husband says, well, okay, we recognize that they're stealing, but then we need to do something, right? We need to fire them. And so I recognize that the majority of the politicians that are down there are not down there for our best interests. And that's why I work as hard as I do to try to blow the whole system up, right? But to believe that we can keep them down there and we can live in this world where we're going to have more pandemics, where things are going to get worse for us, and to say that we want to battle between the idiots in the street who want to be able to parade around like this one with no masks on, and have them protesting about being able to be outside when they're putting all of us at risk, I think is nonsensical. Call or go.
Hey, to answer your question, I have a saying, your rights end where my rights begin.
There you go.
Your rights end where mine begin. And the people, we're being really reactionary with this technology, because the technology that we have, that we see people using now, is nothing compared to what, if they, the CIA, the military, and everybody else get involved with whatever technology they got to weed people or find people and so forth and on. We can't stay in the state of reactionary. We got to put our minds together. If we want to put a stop to this COVID-19, we're going to have to, as much as possible, think on one accord. But that's,
right. That's what I'm getting to, Mike. So at some point, we had Dr. Wright on a couple of weeks ago, and he talked about how we have been socialized to be individualistic, right? But there are times like this when we're going to have to be called to think communally, right? About things. And when you're talking about 300 million people, right? 300 million people. And those 300 million people have been socialized and engineered to be individualistic in their thinking. And then there's a clarion call to think collectively. The time that it takes for everybody to get on that page may be too late for us, right? And so there has to be something. I don't know. So I'm open to have the conversation. But there has to be something where when a bell rings, everybody moves in one accord. We're getting to that place. And it's not paranoia. All you have to do is read the sciences, and you'll see that we're getting to that place where these diseases will require us to think on one accord about how to save our lives collectively and not individually, right? And so what would be the solution? So we could throw rocks at people who propose them, but I'm saying instead of throwing rocks at the people who are proposing them, then come up with one. Say, you know what, I don't think this works, but hey, how about this? So let's add to the pile instead of just, diminishing it.
And you're right. That's part of the collectivism. One of the things is that people throw rocks at people who come up with ideas, not for the simple fact that their ideology is flawed, but the simple fact that they came up with it and the other person didn't.
Oh, the insecurity, you bring up a very important point. People's insecurity, especially our politicians. If, your idea or your way of thinking, if they feel like that you're threatening them in your way of thinking, they have the popularity of the community turn everybody else against you.
Yeah. So let me say this. Welcome to the show, Diane. I'm going to answer one more statement that this young man put on a thread. So he says, so the person that gets infected has no responsibility for themselves. It takes two to tango. So let's first start talking about those people who are on the front line at the hospital, right? So all of those people on the front line at the hospital, that some of them, including my sister, right, who's a nurse, who wore all of the gear and did all of this stuff, something happened, right? But now let's assume, Dre Sandrod, that one of these idiots who believes that they should be able to be outside without a mask, right, infected somebody who then had to go and be treated by my sister who did nothing. So she should now be put in harm's way. So this is what I'm saying. I want you to think about this, right? So while you're behind your...
Can I give a historical perspective on what he's really said? But most people don't know their history, and Typhoid Mary was asymptomatic, and this is history. And she infected but never show a sign and never show symptoms, but you're constantly going around infecting other people. And so we wrestle with the concept of, I might have it and I might be spreading it unknowingly. Then, you know, his question is immature in one way or another, but it's, you know, it's ill-informed, because a lot of people have this virus and never showed any sign. It just passed through them. So that's all I wanted to add. I got to pull up to the gate over here. You guys have a great day.
Thanks, brother.
But,
hey, Diane, welcome.
But if I can finish one of the things that you were saying, Eric, you know what? And you know, there's this little part of me that person who was running around without a mask and telling everybody this is a hoax, and they contract the virus, and then he goes to your sister. There's a little part of me that says, you know, call up your sister and tell her to push him in a corner, and let him die. However, there's another part of me that loves humanity, and even this fool deserves to be saved and learn from his dumb jack A mistakes. But the thing you also have to look at now, because of his stupidity, when he goes to the hospital, now he puts your sister in jeopardy of contracting it.
Right, and so here's the thing, and I'm kind of done with it because I just think it's nonsensical. I may respond or may not respond to the remainder of stuff that he puts up there. But here's how I look at this. It's kind of like folks when a hurricane comes, right? Or when there's a tornado warning, or a mudslide, or something else, some other natural disaster, and the call goes out for people to evacuate. And then you have those folks inevitably who say, I have a right to stay here. I don't have to leave. I'm gonna stay. And then what happens when it does come? Then they call 911. And then what has to happen is the National Guards have to come out and risk their lives to save you, right? And so now you believe then that after you've done this, that you have a right to put somebody else's life at risk, somebody else's husband or wife, somebody's father or mother, daughter or son at risk to save you, because you now got to the end of your stupidity, right? And you need saving. And so somebody should come and save you. And so for the person who believes that they should be able to go out, right, without a mask, and then when they contract it, then they believe, according to the guy in the Post, that they believe that, well, this doctor took an oath to save me. This nurse took an oath to save me. And so this is the individual thinking that I'm talking about. So you don't give a damn about them, right? They should be there at the back end of your stupidity. And they should risk their lives to save you because they took an oath. And you didn't think a goddamn bit about maybe helping save their life by listening to science. That's exactly what I'm talking about. That's the selfishness that I'm talking about. And so at some point, to save lives from people like that person who puts this in this thread, you've got to begin to legislate it, because he'll continue, right, to travel along being a danger to people because he has a right to. And then when he reaches the end of his stupidity, his belief is that his fallback is that, hey, well, they took an oath to save me now, and so they have to risk their lives to save me. And I didn't have to do a goddamn thing to think about them.
Well, you know, Eric, it's a lot like your dad said, people who dying won't let you live. And that's what it is. I mean, and my dad used to call people like that, you know, for what they were. I mean, my dad told this one guy who was doing something incredibly stupid, he said, come here, son, you know what? You're a dumbass. The bottom line. Here is somebody, and not only is he putting your sister at risk, but look at all the people on his downline, on his contact line that he goes to and meets every day. People who he is now infecting with this disease because he wants his 15 minutes of fame. He wants his name to be known that he went up against a man and went out there and said that this was a hoax. Not only does he find out that it's real, because in fact, I just did the prison ministry last night and talked to a couple of brothers who had just recovered from the virus. Not only did the virus affect him, but his mother, his daughter, his son, and his aunt.
Right. And
so this dumbass wants to put all those people in harm's way because he feels he's special.
Right. So to answer Anisha in the thread, she says, it sounds like I have a personal issue with him. Anisha, I have a personal issue with anybody who puts somebody else's life at risk. Anybody. Let's be clear. I have a personal issue with anybody who willfully puts somebody else's life at risk. See, and if you had friends and family members who are working on the front line, I do, fire department, police department, nurses, doctors, these are all family members of mine, right? So when stupidity reigns and puts life at risk, and then those lives now have to go, and my family members in particular, and then my loved ones who also work on the front lines in these jobs that we call essential, then yeah, I take it very, very personally. And I think that we all should. I think that's probably the problem, right? That enough of us are not willing to stand up against stupidity. I think that's probably the biggest part of the problem. So I don't, let's see. I think and callers, when you call in, you gotta wait till I answer the phone. Diana, you there?
I'm here. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm doing well. You know, I know one of the biggest problems that we have as a community.
Hey, Diane, let me try to take this call one more time. Hello, caller. Okay, I'm not sure why I can't get your call, caller. Go ahead, Diane.
One of the problems we have as Americans and also as Black Americans is we don't plan. We're so stuck in survival mode that we don't plan for come up. We are always left behind because we're still struggling to stay afloat. Mm-hmm. If more people spent more time with their families, paying attention to really the needs of the family and the community, we wouldn't always be struggling all the time. I mean, there are some basic things. And I think because we have free will, many people, like the person in the feed, feels as though, I can do what I want to do. It doesn't affect other people, but we don't live on an island, and everything we do affects someone else. Yeah. One issue that we have with our elected officials is they don't plan either. Yeah. Instead of them planning to open up the economy to have people out in public, they should be working on opening the economy so people can transition to functionally work from home and make money. There are many industries that people do not have to come out of the house and they could work from home. Many telemarketing, telework type businesses that can operate from home. That's what they should be pushing these companies, educational systems to do everything remotely until they get this under control. But to open up Georgia, to open up South Carolina, push people back into one-on-one type industries, barbershops, beauty shops, tattoo shops. Why does a tattoo parlor need to be open? I understand that's your trade, but really that's where they see as important to drive the economy, tattoo parlors. Yeah, there has to be something said about their frame of thinking as to how we move forward. Because if we move forward too fast, we will double the numbers even faster. Because people will go out there thinking they could live life the way it was pre-COVID-19.
Sure. Call a go.
Right. But you also have to look at...
Call a go.
Hello. Hi, this is Anissa. Listen, my comment is not to you. I agree with you. I was responding to Dre Sandrod because he keeps saying how Vincent is not ever going to be elected through public office.
Oh, I see. I said, well, I apologize.
It sounds like you have a personal issue with him. No, I agree with you. As a matter of fact, I'm the one that called the show Friday, the young lady that called the show Friday, to tell you how serious I'm taking it. So I agree with you. Trust me, my comment was not to you.
So since I have you on the
and
phone,
I just had to call and clear it up.
Anissa, I appreciate that. So I mean, and I appreciate your sentiment, and I appreciate you clearing it up. But how does it make you feel that in the middle of all of this, right? You know, and I understand. Look, I understand the pain. People need to go back to work because they need to be able to pay bills. They need to take care of these their everyday needs. I got that. But the reality is, like I said when I started this show, I'm looking at a feed of a funeral, right? That's being conducted on Facebook because people can't be there. That is a reality, right? Folks are contracting it. I posted something yesterday, 7 to 10 deaths a day at St. Barnabas Hospital, 90 bodies in the morgue, right? I'm posting these numbers, and then you got somebody saying, well, I should have a right to still walk outside without a mask on. I should still have a right to have a party if I want to. I should still have a right to go do all of these things in the middle of all of this.
How I feel? Well, first of all, I lost my grandmother about I guess the beginning of April. It wasn't from COVID. But because of COVID, we couldn't have a funeral for her. So, like, they let only her three, my aunts and my uncles in, and my brother went up there just to sit outside the funeral home. He sat in his car. So he couldn't go inside, and he couldn't go to the graveyard. I think it's absolutely ridiculous. I think it's disrespectful. I think it's a smack in the face to all those people that are in the hospital fighting for their lives. And you think because you get to sit home behind on your couch, behind your phone screen because you're not going through it, you think you have the right to disregard what these people are going through until it shows up at your front door? Oh, then it'll be a whole different story then. That's
Amen.
how it pisses me off. How dare you? How dare you? Because you are not going through. Because you're sitting home on your couch. That you get to disregard these people that are losing their mothers, fathers, wives, husbands, kids. This is not a game. It is serious. It is nothing to play with. It pisses me off. That's how I feel.
I appreciate the call. Thank you. Stay safe.
Amen. I mean, and we all share that same sentiment. But the whole thing is that this person is doing it not because of his true beliefs, but because it fuels his financial agenda. I think that, this person is just seeking attention and will do it in any way possible.
Well, I'm not talking about a single person. I'm talking about a movement. So I'm saying, Vincent, when we look on the news now, you see, like the other day in Pennsylvania, there were all those people who are out there protesting without masks, right? You have folks in New York who were protesting to open up and I want to talk about Cuomo's comment, but they were protesting about opening up New York, and they were out there without masks on. And again, when we understand the numbers, how it could spread exponentially, when we don't respect the fact that the flattening of the curve was a result of people, good people, right, caring people who followed the science, stayed in the house, socially distanced, wore masks and gloves, that all brought these numbers down. So the comfort can leave. Right, but when people say, well, the comfort only treated X number of people and it left, right? But they're not tying to that narrative the fact that you had hundreds of thousands of people who followed these very strict guidelines of sheltering in place, of wearing masks and wearing gloves and things like that. That's what led to it. Had they not done that, then that ship may very well have been full of COVID-19 patients.
Right, and that's the part that we were saying, and it leads to what Diane was saying. See, the government or a certain group of people in the government have an agenda. See, they want to open up the economy knowing that it's not safe. Well, why do we know what will make it safe? Well, let's find out who is sick. Well, to find out who's sick, we need tests. Okay, who's not getting all the tests available to distribute them out to the states? A certain person. But he's pushing this agenda that you need to go back to work. And you have to look at another point. They get other people, or they rile other people who believe and support them to carry on their agenda. I mean, there's no way in the world a seated president of the United States should tell people that they need to liberate their states. It's the agenda. The same thing with this other person going out there saying that this is all a hoax. You have to look at his financial agenda and what he's getting by actually doing this. Besides the simple fact of, he may be getting some financial benefit or gain because he's with this particular group, but he's also leading a whole lot of people to their death. It's all about this other person's agenda.
Yeah,
and that's what sickens me.
Yeah,
he puts other people lives in danger just so that he can make a couple of coins.
And we got to pay attention to that, guys. And we talked about this the other day. Look, and I posted this on my page today. I said, what would happen if the 99% went on strike? If the 99% went on strike, if the 99%, right? Because we all acknowledge this, right? That the top 1% has been benefiting, and for 40 years, right, or so, the 99%, no pay increases, none of this other kind, all things we talk about. And we see, because of all of those insecurities, 26 million filed for unemployment? Right?
Yes.
And out of the 26 million, think about the people who had to file for unemployment. And so they had health insurance through their companies. So now they no longer have health insurance either. So all of this is happening right now. And so when they're asking you to go back to, so the idea, and AOC said something yesterday. She said, why should people be rushing to go back to work at companies where they were working 70 hours a week or 60 hours a week and making minimum wage, not barely being able to pay their bills? That's not what we should be going back to. And I'll say this too. Look, the 99%, for all intents and purposes, should be unionized, if you ask me, right? And there should be some negotiation going on about going back to work. Because understand this, guys, in as much as you may be in pain because you need to go back to work, these companies that you work for are in pain too, because you're not working. Right? And so now is a time to leverage what's going on for something better than what you had. But to simply be rushed back in this moment of panic, back into the fire, right? Back into the fire. Think about what most of your lives were like, right? And think about how you're now in this precarious situation because there was no safety net. Well, now to me is the time to negotiate that. So you have the government over here who's saying, oh my God, things are collapsing, 26 million unemployed. All these bigger businesses are going under. We had a conversation a little bit yesterday about oil, right? The fact that you're not driving your car is crippling the oil industry.
Yes.
That mighty oil industry, right? Crippling it. And if people are posting up, gas prices are 99 cents a gallon. But guess what's going to happen when you go back to work? They're going to raise the gas prices, right? So there's no negotiation that says, hey, listen, we understand that it is our consumer dollar that's driving all of this. So we want a seat at the table. The 99% wants a seat at the table that says you can't gouge us anymore. The airline industry, right? They want to be bailed out, but they're gouging you every time you wanted to check a goddamn bag, right? They reduced the size of the overhead so that your bag couldn't fit there anymore, so you had to check it. But there's no negotiation that says, hey, listen, when we all go back to work, there are going to be some new rules. See, I say the 99% should strike. I'm with AOC. The 99%, yeah, it's a little painful. But think about the bus strike. That was a little painful for those folks, right? They had to walk 2 miles, 3 miles to get to work. Some of them may have lost their jobs because they couldn't get to work, right? But they were playing the long game. And see, and the long game isn't going to take very long because, listen, if you don't go to work, everybody suffers. It's like a domino effect. And the government is going to bail you out. Trust me. It's like, what's that game? They call it chicken, right?
Yeah.
You just keep going, keep going, keep going, and don't be afraid not to turn. Don't swerve. Just keep going because the government is going to buckle. They're buckling now, and they're going to continue to buckle. They have conditioned you to believe that you are not in charge. You are in charge. They all work for you. And the longer you hold out, the more you'll see that they'll buckle. They're pulling money out of their ass right now to keep you alive. And they'll keep doing it until they figure something else out. But nobody. See, the only representative that I've heard in this whole thing really speak for the people in a way that says she understands from a proper perspective has been AOC. See, the Democrats, they just want to keep you on the plantation too. So yeah, give them some money. And then we'll work to figure out how to get them back to work so they can work for us. She's saying, no, now's the time to liberate. Now's the time to look at trying to be free, to create a new deal for yourself, to recognize your power.
Eric, you make a very good point. I was reading an article earlier this morning about the sweatshops in California, and they were talking about how they closed the sweatshops because one particular company was making just T-shirts, so they laid off the people. Then they eventually brought the people back in the last 2 weeks to convert the business over to making cloth masks, and they're producing probably like 1,000 to 2,000 a day. But what they're saying is with the employees, some of them who are immigrant workers who are not documented are making literally 20 cents per mask. So they're working 50-hour weeks and coming home with like $350.
Right.
And they don't have, because they weren't working on the books and they're getting paid off the books. When they were laid off, they couldn't feed their family. They couldn't pay their rent. They couldn't do anything. So now that they're back, they too are in this conundrum of people that are being taken advantage of,
yes,
that are being underpaid for their services. And you're right. This is the opportune time for people to unionize in every industry across the board and to get better rights and better pay.
And see, understand what I'm saying? I'm not talking about, because I know you have self-serving unions. See, what I'm saying is we have to shift the entire paradigm. You have to think outside the box. I'm going to give you an example. It's kind of like when Steve Forbes came up with the iPhone, right? Steve Forbes didn't look at what existed. He looked at what could be. Because had he tried to work on something based on something that had already existed, he would have just created a cooler flip phone, right? And there's a story I read when Henry Ford, when they asked him, they said, Mr. Ford, if you had, instead of you just going and creating a car, if you had asked people what they wanted, what would they have said? He said, a faster horse. See, because they couldn't think outside the box. So all they had before the car was a horse. So they would have wanted a faster horse. So you need some out-of-the-box thinking. So I'm not talking about the union that currently exists. I'm saying that and I don't know that it is necessarily a structured union. But it is, when I say unionizing, I mean bring people together.
You mean being united.
That's right, bringing people together. See, so because you're in that institutional thinking of a standard union, you're missing the point. I'm saying unionize. So when you have an AOC who says, hey, wait a second, you guys, don't just rush back to work. Let's look at what your conditions were. See, she's not asking for dues. She's not asking people to sign union contracts. She's simply trying to unite people around thinking. See, so when I say unionize, don't stay in that tiny little box you live in. Step outside of it for a minute. Think bigger than that. That's what I say. When I say that you've been conditioned, you've been socially engineered, see, you retreat back to that little space that you're in. Think bigger than that. So right now, you got 99% of people that are controlling the entire economy right now. The entire economy is collapsed because of these 99%. Yes. What are you going to do with the power that you now have? And they're trying to rush you back to work at your own peril. And you don't even realize that.
Correct. Because they're led by the agenda of the 1%, who are using their attack dogs, the politicians that they pay, to now force you to go back to work. See, and in terms of uniting, and in fact, when we unite, when we go into the new norm, let's make it a true new norm. Let's take care of things like the underlying conditions and bad health care in certain neighborhoods. Let's take care of the simple fact that we need a working wage. Because when they are putting these people back to work now at risk, the majority of the people who are going back are people who are of color, who are barely making above minimum wage. Let's go for some, in fact, if you want them to go to work, you should actually give them combat pay. When I was in the military, when we went into hot spots, we got combat pay, which was double our actual salary. If we're going to do that, then let's do it right. Let's rebuild this country right. If we're going to unite and be a true United States of America, let's level the playing field across the board. These big corporations that are pushing this agenda, and yeah, they're suffering. Oh, yeah, that's right. They may have to have their yacht repossessed. Oh, they suffering, Eric. They suffering. But these other people are losing their lives.
That's right.
For nothing.
For nothing. That's right. So you go lose your life for the $8 an hour that you were making, but until you die, right, the $8 is translating into whatever it is that I'm pocketing as the owner of that company. So I'll put you 400 people back to work at $8 or $8.25 an hour, mass produce whatever my product is so I could, that's right, buy another yacht. And then as you fall off, you just fall off. And I'll find somebody else to replace you now because there are 26 million unemployed Americans. And the fact that we can't see that.
4.4 million filed yesterday.
What are we doing, people? No. See, I'm telling you, what is happening right now is there's a crippling of the economy because you're not working. And so all of those people are starting to feel the pain that you've been feeling your whole life. And I'm simply saying, hold on a little bit longer. It'll work out. It's going to work itself out. Trust me. They can't let you fall through you are the backbone of this economy. Trust the process.
And it's not like Trump's going to let immigrants come in here and take your job. So you don't have to worry about that. Trust the process. We are now working, we now need to work from a position of unity, working from a position of strength. Let's make some fundamental changes to right those things that are wrong with this country.
And so, but here's the problem for me. You're not hearing any of your elected officials talk to you like this. Not one of them. Not one of them. Not one of them. They're telling you, and correctly so, shelter in place, take the burden off of our healthcare infrastructure, leave the hospitals open for those who are coming in and need emergency care and all that kind of stuff. I got all of that. But then beyond that, see, they didn't do anything to prepare you for this, and they're not doing anything to prepare you for the aftermath. They're literally like deer, all of them are like deer in headlights.
Right. They're waiting for that 1% to tell them what to do next. See, and that's why whoever posted it about me said that I will never be elected for the simple fact that I can think outside of the box. And I don't have a problem in telling you the truth or giving you some actual true assessments of what's going on and happening in our world. No. People who are in power hate people like me because I actually want to do something to help the common man and help our communities and change our world. So if that means that I do not qualify to be an elected official, then that person is right. But me, I have a little hope and a lot of faith in the American people and the people who I chose to serve, that they do actually want to make changes, that they are sick and tired of being sick and tired of the same bull crap that their fathers and grandfathers had to put up with, and that our time is now.
So listen, I want to play this audio file. This was Phil Murphy yesterday. See if I can find it and see what you guys think about this. Here we go.
At the risk of sounding partisan, and I'm not saying this to be partisan. In fact, if the words were spoken by a Democrat, I would be equally as forceful. But I'm taken aback. My breath is taken away. I have almost nothing to say to what I read that Senator Mitch McConnell of Kentucky said earlier today, that in fact it wouldn't be necessarily a bad idea for states to go bankrupt. I'm paraphrasing him, but this is in fact what he said. It's actually worked out pretty well for some cities over time. Really? This is the time, in a moment of crisis unlike any our country has faced in at least 100 years, to suggest it's a good thing for states to go bankrupt? I would say two things in reaction, Senator, and I'm not sure you're watching, I suspect you're not. Number one, come on, man. That is completely and utterly irresponsible. There's no level of responsibility associated with that, and I don't care what party you're in. Encouraging, engendering explicitly, almost hoping for bankruptcies of American states in the midst of the biggest healthcare crisis this country has ever faced is completely and utterly irresponsible. Secondly, as usual, he's dead wrong, because that won't happen. We won't go bankrupt. You have my word, we won't go bankrupt. But you know what will happen? We will gut the living daylights in every state in America out of the services, the exact services that our citizens need right now. We will just cut, and cut. We won't go bankrupt, Senator, but we will leave our citizens in the lurch at their most profound hour of need. We will leave people on the beach alone, helpless. That is what will happen in New Jersey. And I might add, Senator, without having spoken to your governor, that will happen in Kentucky. You have my word. So watch your words, sir. This is no time for bankruptcies and wishing bankruptcies. This is the time for the federal government, and I was encouraged by what President Trump tweeted yesterday, and we're going to hold the federal government to this. This is the time to stand up on a bipartisan basis and be there for the states in America, not just for the state's sake, but for the American people. Please, God.
So, so you have states like New Jersey, where they practice misfeasance and malfeasance for decades. We've got all kinds of financial issues. And the question that I'm asking is the governor now attempting to get a clean slate from the government, from the federal government, using COVID-19 as the vehicle? So all of the bad financial or political decisions that they've made, not just this governor, but previous governors too, that they all get wiped away now, right? So the precarious situation that New Jersey and some other states are finding themselves in, they find themselves in because they were not fiscally healthy prior to COVID-19, right? People were leaving, businesses were shuttering, right? So it's not COVID-19 that brought this. So I'm kind of in a mixed bag, and I'm going back and forth. So be interested, Diane and Vincent, and you guys who listen to the show, because on one hand I say that, right? I say, well, no, this is your situation. You need to fix it. To Murphy, you want to be governor. You knew the state of the state when you decided that you and raised your hand and said you wanted to be governor. But then on the other hand, I look and say, well, wait a minute. You have private industry, the banking industry. You have other industry, the airline industry, the car industry, who needed to be bailed out, and they got bailed out. And so maybe the state should be bailed out, like they were bailed out, and given another opportunity. And what that would do for all of the residents within the state of New Jersey if the federal government did bail them out. What are your thoughts?
So Eric,
Yep.
if the federal government bails out individual states, that means a part of that bailout plan would include us turning over our rights solely to the federal government for them to then oversee the states and tell us what to do.
Mm-hmm.
So when we have division now with individual states, like you see in Georgia and other states, the federal government, the president gives you guidelines, and the states decide which guidelines they're going to follow exactly or amend according to their state. We would be giving over our entire rights to the federal government, i.e. Trump, to decide how he wants to run the state. So if he wanted to say, for instance, that we have to shut down the borders of New Jersey and we can't let New Yorkers in, and that's what would happen. He would send a National Guard out, and they would do that. I think it's detrimental for anybody to even talk in that type of language of bailing out and filing bankruptcy of states. If we go back to our finances, there are better ways in which that we can allocate money, still do business, and still flourish. But the problem is we have many industries that are controlling individual states and politicians that are dictating where the money goes. There was an article some time ago that talked about the Shake Shack that got over like $20-some million in money from the Small Business Fund. That shouldn't be, but they gave the money back because they said that it was unconstitutional for them to get this money when they knew small mom and pop businesses really needed the money. There's a problem when it comes to politicians and elected officials as to who they serve. We know this already. This is an opportunity for us not to allow Murphy or the federal government to solely make decisions for us all. We all have to continue to be vocal about what we want for our state and our city. Because once they take control of the state, they take control of your cities and your townships, and everything that you see will change, and there will be no democracy because they will be so far and untouchable when it comes to what needs to happen. When you talk about roads being paved, when you talk about school education, I mean, you've already seen how they divvied up money for education in some areas of New Jersey got more when other areas got less, when you knew the communities that really needed it. That's not the direction that we need to be going. People need to be getting together on the ground, residents, everybody, and talking about what we need and how we can turn this around and build back up our businesses, build back the economy, as well as keeping the state afloat. One of the things that we also have to look at is the taxes. Property taxes are astronomical in New Jersey.
But Diane, don't you think they're just going to go up higher?
Because they're so high. Go ahead.
But don't you think they're just going to go higher? I mean, there is no plan.
It doesn't have to go higher.
There's no plan to increase revenue.
That's the problem. We have to stop getting people in here that don't know finances. They can't run their own households. These are problems because if you think that the only way you could pay for A and B is that you keep raising the taxes on Y and Z, that's not how it works. You can't keep doing that. At some point, you have to stop and say A and B is not necessary, or C and D can be done the same way at less. We have to stop it because if we don't, like you said, the taxes will never stop going up. But there has to be people in place to talk about how to alleviate the property taxes. In Detroit, the mayor out there put in place a program for people to maintain their homes, to revert the tax liens, to revert foreclosures, to give people an extended amount of time to revamp their mortgages, refinance, as opposed to these refinance programs that they're in now. One of the biggest hoaxes that we got going on is the mortgage industry. How do I buy a house for $125,000 and I'm paying back $350? That doesn't make any sense.
True.
The numbers don't make any sense. When I first bought my house, I still could not figure out how they came up with I'm paying double for a house. It's not right. It's absolutely not right. Something has to come to a halt. And when you're talking about unionizing, getting people together, these are all the things we need to talk about. Housing. They were able to get everybody off the streets now. You see, they got the people off the streets in Newark, whether they're in their shelters or people's homes, they got them off the streets. But when people were out there marching and laying on City Hall and talking about the homeless and they need housing and they wouldn't do anything, but they found a way and they did it. So it's not like it can't be done, and we shouldn't have to push and push and push to the point that we're standing outside with burning torches to tell these people what to do.
Well, if I could add to what Diane said, and I mean very eloquently and very true, you have to look at New Jersey's government and its finances. What the coronavirus has exposed, what a lot of people knew, is that New Jersey government financing is pretty much a house of cards. So, and they have the wonderful ability that when they exceed the budget, they go into legislation and raise the budget limit and borrow more money against it. But we're talking about, majority of it, in fact, only 7% of it goes to actual functioning for the employees, the police, the fire, et cetera, the prisons. All of that goes into the New Jersey budget. And what they're saying is that if they're billing out corporations at billions, then they should be able to actually the government should actually give some money to the state to compensate for things like medical, police, fire, sick, the additional mass ventilators, the accommodation of these hotels that they use for the homeless, and other ancillaries. And Diane's absolutely right. We need more people with an acute understanding of finances and the ability to tell all of this policy isn't going to work in our state and rebuild our state and build it right. The problem that we have with our taxes is that we are overtaxed in New Jersey for the simple reason that there are corporations that don't pay taxes. And the many compensate for the few. That's why our taxes are so high. Why do you think in the state of New Jersey that senior citizens are the second largest to be foreclosed on? And in terms of actual bipartisanship, with all of the politicians getting some fuel money, or as they say, political pork to bring back to the state of New Jersey is 50th. That means your congressmen and your senators are doing nothing for the state of New Jersey.
Absolutely. Call it go.
Go ahead.
Well, good morning, Eric. Good morning, Diane. Good morning, Vincent. I watched Phil Murphy's press conference yesterday. Okay. And Mitch McConnell, okay, come on, man, really? I mean, you think New Jersey, in reference to will go bankrupt? And Murphy told him, no, it's not going to happen. Okay, Murphy is not the perfect politician. Okay, what would Chris Christie do right now? If this coronavirus was under his administration, would he run to Florida during the snowstorm?
No, Chris Christie would raise your gas taxes up 15 cents, close all the beaches while him and his family have a party, and overtax you on the bridge.
The Star Ledger yesterday, when I was on the show, we compared Chris Christie and Governor Murphy. Okay, the politicians. I'm a Democrat. I'm sticking up for Murphy right now because due to the fact that we have some people in our communities, okay. We criticize our elected officials for doing birthday runs, giving out birthday gifts regarding our local elected officials, having the fire department go around, reference to birthday Murphy is doing the best he could. I understand Diane's comments. We have a homeless population that wasn't addressed. Now it's being done. But come on, let's get Murphy a. I mean, I know you're not going to do that, but I'm saying as though the Murphy administration is doing the best we could in refugee local municipalities. Right now, Roz Baraka is holding a press conference in Newark and asking for federal money. There's nothing wrong with asking for federal dollars because that's our money. That's our money. There's no control right now. There's no control.
I understand that well. I understand that, but here's my thing, and I have nothing against Murphy. I have no personal vendetta against Raz or any other politician. My thing is, if you don't handle your own money in your own house, how are you going to handle somebody else's money?
That's exactly right.
Why? What I'm saying is, though, I know you don't have a problem with Roz and Murphy. My problem is this. Okay, I'm a renter. Okay, if my taxes, if the landlord's taxes goes up, my rent goes up. So we're all in the predicament. New Jersey has right now. The economy in New Jersey is taking a fall. Okay, right now people are out of work. They don't know where meals are coming. People that make minimum wage. I mean, we all got to come together once in a while.
We do, and this is what I'm saying. I totally understand that, but what I have a problem with is mismanagement of funds. That's where my issue comes in, because we are not in the same way. So go back, Will, months to last year when we were talking about on the show reparations for Black people. White people, other people said, "Oh, you can't get it. Where the money going to come from? You don't deserve that." Blah blah blah. We gave you Obama. Okay. And now they got money, they coming out the kazoo for stimulus plans. So the money is there. The money is always there. We're going to have to pay it back in different ways. But it comes with mismanagement of money. See, if we were managing our money properly, we wouldn't have to continuously increase our property taxes.
Is it coming from the local level? Is it coming from the federal level?
It's coming from both. It's coming from both. More so on the local level, we have to go after the state for money.
On the show, and put a dialogue together and tell me where the mismanagement of these municipalities are coming from.
Okay,
well, you don't want to get
Will. Perfect example. Wait a minute, Vincent. Perfect example. I'll use Hillside for an example. When I was an elected official, my term ended in January 2017. Do you know how many lawsuits, frivolous lawsuits, we had to pay out because the mayor was having personal vendettas with employees? Frivolous lawsuits. We're still paying out to this day. We still now have new lawsuits that have added on with the new mayor. We have new lawsuits that's added on with the new mayor.
You can show me on the show that who's mismanagement the government in New Jersey. I will not say nothing no more about the topic.
I told you.
You're talking about.
I just told you, Hillside. That's one example.
Will, she gave you an example, but you want to know about the government of New Jersey, you simply go and Google New Jersey's budget quarter, the last quarter, and it shows you. And here's where the mismanagement comes in New Jersey, okay? And why our taxes are so high. We have now, the New Jersey residents have paid into a premium for all of these corporations that are in New Jersey, and they claim to keep these corporations in New Jersey by not paying off on corporate taxes. They don't pay for their property tax. They don't pay certain employee taxes, and they don't pay in excess in terms of their business taxes. All that money now gets transferred to the residents of New Jersey. They get a percentage of the taxes that these corporations should pay. They have that thing in certain areas that they call the impoverished area or area improved, whatever they call in your neighborhood, in which they now lure corporations in there, and they get a 20-year rebate on the property taxes. Plus, they get a cut on their on their municipal taxes, city wage taxes, etc., etc. All that comes out of your pocket, Will. Your pocket.
Basically, Vincent, I am going to go Google this, okay, and I'm going to look it up and do some research about it. But you know,
I'll tell you what. I'll even make it shorter. I'll even make it shorter for you. Just pick the top 5 corporations in New Jersey and look at their tax assessments and look at what they actually pay. Those millions of dollars comes out of your pocket.
And so does the federal money come out of my pocket.
And so does the federal money come out of your pocket. Let's look at. Hold on, Will. And let me break this down for you because we talk. Let me finish. Give me 2 minutes.
Okay, let him
finish.
Because
2 minutes. On this show, we talked about this $2 trillion and how it's coming out. That's going to these big corporations and places like the Shake Shack, right? You pay for that. That comes out of your pocket.
So why don't we do this? Listen, you're running for public office, okay? So what is your economic plan for the state of New Jersey? A plan. Where can I see your plan on your social media page that you're running for Senate?
Well,
what is your plan?
What is my plan to deal with what, the virus or pro-virus?
I'm talking about when we come out of this, okay, economically, okay. I mean, people probably still have their jobs, you know, and people, you know, these local municipalities are asking for federal help. You know, it's unfortunate. And Diane, I don't take no offense to your comments. And I know that you're well schooled in what your comments are. But my thing is that, you know, by the way, Will, there's a lot of. Can I finish this, please?
Yeah, sure.
I'm gonna go. Okay. We have to come together as a whole entire state, because we have a serious. People are dying, like Eric was saying. A reference to St. Barnabas Medical Center. People are dying daily up there, but nobody has reported the recoveries of the coronavirus victims. Not state officials at all. I mean, why is that?
Well, to answer your other question,
the people who have recovery, you know, to flatten the curve. You know, all we hear is every day is flat. The curve is flattening. The curve is flattening. But when is it going to end? I mean, the stay-home orders in reference to Georgia, I don't approve of that. But come on, you can't keep people in houses, stuck in houses for a very long time. We know it's a serious situation out here. But I'm going to let you guys go. And Diane, you know, I do appreciate your comments every day on the show, but it's not a personal thing.
Hey, Will.
No, absolutely. I don't.
As a whole community,
this is just a live conversation going back and forth. Absolutely.
But Will, a couple of days ago, we did talk about and acknowledge the work that Governor Murphy was doing. In fact, we even noted that his approval levels have went up.
Didn't we talk about that yesterday?
Yes, we did, and yesterday as well. So, no, this is not us. This is not us bashing on every politician, because we do know that some of them are doing a great job. We also acknowledge and aware that certain politicians around the neighborhood are listening to this program. And, in fact, some suggestions that was made on this program, they implemented a day or two after. So we do know that they are listening. And we're very mindful.
As far as, you know, we have local elections coming up. We have the November elections. Let's just get out there and vote. You know, that and see where people let the people speak for themselves. And you got
right. Will, you're in Orange, right, or East Orange?
Yes.
Which town? Orange.
Yes.
Aren't you guys going to have a live mayoral debate coming up? When is that happening? Do you know?
That's on April 29th.
April 29th. How can people get information about that?
You have to go to the hub. It's called the Orange Hub or the Hub. Okay. And you just have to reserve your spot.
Okay. They can do it on Facebook?
Yes, they are. I believe so.
And that's the Orange Hub is HUUB?
HUBB, I believe.
HUBB. Okay. All right.
I will try to look it up and share it on my page.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
All right. Take care.
Hey, thanks.
All right, Eric.
Thanks, Vincent.
Thank you.
I'm sorry.
All right, I'll talk
thanks,
to you later.
Will. Stay
Bye-bye.
safe. So, listen, guys. Speaking of governors, Governor Cuomo, who's been holding these very long-winded press conferences, And I think I mentioned this a couple days ago too, right? That I think that all of them, whether it's Murphy, Raj Baraka, or Cuomo, or some of the other ones, those are the ones that come into my feed. I think that they started, seeing their star power, right? Because of the number of
my grandmother would say they smelling their butt.
Yeah, because they saw the number of views, right? The number, they said, oh shit, I got, I'm not normally getting this number of interactions on social media, and I'm getting this, and everything is always politically motivated in the end. So they're building up their social media arsenal, I guess, for re-election, or however they're going to leverage it later on to help somebody else get elected. But Cuomo yesterday was challenged about the protests or the protesters wanting to get back to work. And Cuomo made a comment, I'm paraphrasing now, but he said that if they wanted to go back to work, they could go and get a job as an essential worker, right? That there are plenty of essential job positions available if they wanted to do that. But to go back to work in a salon or in all these other kinds of non-essential places would be hazardous to the community at large. And then he got ridiculed for being insensitive in making that statement. He got called an elitist, out of touch. What do you guys think about that? I got my opinion, but I'm holding it.
Well, I think that he has a right to say that, and there are essential jobs out there. I've seen commercials. They're hiring at all the Safeway, grocery stores, ShopRite, Amazon, FedEx, all types of delivery services. I know Misfits.
Well, but the argument, Diane, is this: there
are opportunities,
but the argument is this: if you own a restaurant, so here's the argument: if you're a restaurateur, you own a restaurant, you want to get back to work, and so Cuomo says, well, no, you can't go open your restaurant that you've poured your life savings in, but you can go work at Amazon. That's not what he said about
restaurants. That's a bad example. Restaurants can do door service. They can do sidewalk curb service, or they can do delivery. So
but some of them,
industry.
But some of them can't retool in that way. So, but what he's saying,
well, that's because their mind doesn't retool in that way.
Right, but the argument, I guess, the overall,
mindset.
But the overall argument is this: whatever it is that I've been trained to do, or I've invested my entire life savings to do, you're saying no, I can't do that, but I can go and work for Amazon.
Look, if you crying broke and you're at the point that you're stressed about money and that is your option, then you know what? There is no job too low that I would not do and pay my bills and keep the roof over my head. And when people get off their high horse and get to the level that they say, I have to do whatever's necessary, then they will forget about, I'm not trying to impress my neighbors or my relatives or anybody else. I'm here to survive. And then they will go and take whatever jobs that are available. And essential jobs don't mean you a grocery store checker or cashier or a warehouse person. You could be working for the company and working from home still, doing customer service from home. So there's many, or marketing for them. So there are different things in those industries that are still working that you don't have to physically be outside the house. So maybe he said it flippantly. That's possibly, and people took it the wrong way instead of him going into expansion on it. But when you're standing in front of a camera and you're trying to give out information and you're answering questions that are coming back from the public through the reporters, sometimes you don't have another extra 5 or 10 minutes to give for an explanation. So everything should not be taken to heart, but there are jobs that are constantly and are looking for people. We had Deidre on Tuesday that talked about she had job orders coming in, and she's looking for people to fill these job orders.
Right.
She had job orders coming in while she was on the show.
So here's what
had companies calling her.
See, Eric, here's the big problem that we're looking at. There are jobs out there, and there are people who need jobs. But sense of entitlement entitlement. The simple fact of saying that's not how I want to make my money.
Right.
Really?
Right.
Come on. You're freaking hungry.
Yeah.
I don't care what the job is.
Yeah.
If I'm feeding my family, I'm taking a job.
Yeah. Call or go.
Hey guys, what's up? This is Darren. How's everybody doing?
Darren Martin, what's going
Hey,
on,
Darren.
man?
Good morning.
Hey, Union man,
Hey.
what's up?
Hey, so listen.
Hey, Darren,
Oh,
you
wait,
realize...
before you go
Hey,
into
Darren,
it, how's
you-
your wife feeling? How's your wife?
Well, she took a little bad turn over the last 2 days, where she still had some chest congestion and discomfort and some coughing. So I gave her some after getting in consultation with a doctor some Tussin PM. DM that seemed to have knocked that out right now. But we just taking it day by day, and she's taking it slow. And hey, man. She won't be going back to work until she's well enough to go back, and she won't go take the second test until then either. But thanks for asking.
Praying that she recovers.
Hey,
I get
Darren,
to
let
play
me ask you a
doctor,
question.
so that's the fun part.
Darren, can I ask you a question? So the question, Diane, so for people who are just tuning in, never watched the show, haven't watched it in a while, Darren Martin, who frequently comes on as a co-host, is a frequent caller and contributor to the show, has great information to share with us all the time. His wife contracted COVID-19. And so that's why Diane asked how she's feeling. So the question I want to ask you, Darren, is this. Because I've seen some of the live videos that you've done from home, addressing people who are floating these conspiracy theories out there. As you continue to watch that, and you listen to you see the protesters out there without masks on, talking about what their rights are to go and infect people, and you're home dealing with your wife now. How does that make you feel?
Oh man, I had to turn the TV off because it pisses you off because it's so irresponsible. And it's some of the people I see posting things. I love them dearly, but they are truly either misguided and just looking at their personal agenda that they want to get out there. Because the things they're saying are not backed up with facts, not backed up with science at all. They're just pushing their own agenda. And that's why I'm going to be telling my family in Georgia that they better not go back out to those hair salons and go out to those barbershops when that crap opens on Friday, because they're going to use us as test dummies again. Because you notice the industries they're opening first. They're opening
the black industries.
All the places where minorities frequent. That's what they're opening first. And then they say a few weeks later is when we're going to open up. Because we're going to give you a chance to kill yourselves off first. I mean, we just got to be smarter, Eric. I mean, this is very dangerous. Very dangerous.
Yeah. I got to tell you, I see them, I see the posts and I see the protests, and I just appeal to folks' common sense, right? And say, just look at what you see, what you're witnessing, to understand the truthfulness of it. But anyway, thanks for sharing all of that. You called in, you wanted to make a comment?
Yeah, so I agree with Will to this extent. New Jersey was already in bad shape budget-wise. I know we talked about it on the show. Kevin brought it up a bunch of times over a period of time. Yeah, so New Jersey was already in trouble through a couple administrations, as you eloquently said, Eric, where they mismanaged money. But if we think things are in a situation now, it's going to even get worse if some infusion of cash is not pushed into New Jersey and New York, Pennsylvania, and some of these other states, because layoffs are going to happen at the state level on so many different levels, where people will be in positions where those services that we rely on definitely won't be around. So some cash is going to have to happen and some accountability both ways. So there's some fault on both sides there. But at the end of the day, and I'll make this my last comment, at the end of the day, I just think we need to make sure that, again, it goes back to voter education, where voters are looking at these individuals who's running, looking at their records, asking the tough questions, and holding them accountable. I just think we just need to stop blindly voting. If we keep blindly voting, then these budgetary situations, whether COVID-19 comes or not, or situations like it come or not, or these pandemics come or not, the states are sitting in bad situations because we keep putting the same sorry people into office, and we're not holding anybody accountable, and we keep voting for them over and over again. So we're going to have to get to the point where we're going to have to stop this. And my last point is this. And this is a scary situation that's going on where, because of COVID-19, I don't know if you guys got a chance to see it, but last night, I shared it on my page too. Open Line, who I disagree with a lot of things they do sometimes, they had a 2-hour show last night. One of the people they had on was a funeral home director out of New York City, and he was talking about how the funeral homes, how the cemeteries are not working and the hospitals are not working with the funeral homes to some extent, meaning some hospitals are saying they're closing on Saturday and Sunday on certain days, etc., not giving people a chance to get their loved ones' remains, etc., and Rose Hill and Rosemont cemeteries in New Jersey basically even going against the governor's order by saying only one family member can come to the view their loved one, not even the 10 that they talked about before, where that 10 would be a few of your family members and the funeral home people. No, they only allowing one family member, and I just think that is wrong because I know we living in a tough time. I know this is unprecedented, but they can't go against the governor's order. So certainly I'm going to be, because you know me, I'm an activist. I'll be making some calls to Rosemont and Rose Hill today to find out what the heck is going on, because if that's what they're doing here in New Jersey, that's just wrong.
Yeah. So
Darren, let me just make a point to that. In regards to the cemeteries, when my cousin passed away in March, at the end of March, unexpectedly, they didn't allow us to get out at the cemetery, even though we were outside. Of course, it was uncomfortable, and when we went to view at the funeral home, they only allowed 5 of us to go in. But with concern with us coming to view our family member, the other concern is the employees that are interacting with families every single day. So while it may be 5 of us from our family that just may go to say goodbye, these same employees are interacting my family members, the next 5, the next 5, the next 5. And when I talked to my pastor last Friday, they had 70 bodies that came in as of last Friday at one funeral home. So you multiply that times 5. Those individuals that work in a funeral home are now interacting with all of those people. And that's why they have, and they told me they had been on the phone back and forth with Murphy every single day. The rules were changing with the funeral homes and viewings and stuff because they were trying to contain it, because similar to when HIV and AIDS started, they don't know the transmission of what can happen with the deceased body. So it's really hard and difficult to do. And some funeral homes I know have done, I saw one person just said they're doing a Zoom conference, family video conferencing for the family to view the body. I saw other funeral homes that were doing stuff like that, similar. So family members could just dial in. It could be private for the family member. But I understand how you feel. I know how I felt. We took our cousin to the cemetery. We followed the hearse, got to the cemetery, couldn't get out, drove out the cemetery, stood on the sidewalk, and watched them remove her body out of the hearse. Yeah. It is not a good feeling. It really isn't. But it's not just us that we have to think about. We're thinking about the pastor that's there, the graveyard, the grave diggers, the director, and they aren't interacting with us once because we had to go in once to set up the arrangements and sign the paperwork, then go back for a viewing. Yeah. So now they've interacted with us twice. Yeah. Who knows how many times or where I've been before I came back to interact with them. You know what I'm saying? So it's hard. It really is.
It's right. And I have a relative in the industry in North Jersey too, and it's not one person in. It's usually 2 at a time, and they have to keep their distance. But
there doing things like the Zoom, the Facebook Live, a few other media circuits to actually ease the pain. But nothing can replace your loved one. And that's one of the big reasons why I am so passionate and upset about people who spread this propaganda about this being a hoax and that they should come out, or that they should, liberate their towns and cities, because you don't go through the death or the pain of seeing somebody else die and someone loved one that they'll never get back over someone else's stupidity.
Yeah.
What kind of a jackass are you that you want to endanger the life and cause all this suffering and harm for somebody else for your own agenda?
Yeah. Hey, Darren, I want to ask you another question, if you're still there.
Yes, sir.
All right. So I posted on my page, and you're a union guy. What would happen if the 99% of people who are literally controlling the economy now because they're out of work just decided to strike? Just say.
Hey, I'm going to say this, Eric. I saw that post and I started chuckling right away. And I don't think people should look at it as I'm a union guy, I'm a labor guy, but I'm a community organizer and an activist. So don't look at it only as a union, meaning you're going to go pay union dues and you become part of a union contract. I'm talking about, I think AOC, who seems to be the only one talking about this, I think she's absolutely correct that there won't be a better time for the 99% to take a stand than now. Because right now, we sit at a point where we can make every decision that we want to make right now, and we can call every shot, make every demand, put every demand, because we know this government has the money, because they're pulling it out of the air right now. Yeah. So we got to take a stand. If we draw a line in the sand right now and say, well, I know you said in this state we're gonna go back this day. We're gonna say we're gonna go back that day. We're not going back until this date, until we get this, and this. Here's our demands. You meet these demands, we go back to work. What are they gonna do? They're gonna have to do it.
Yeah, they're gonna have to do it.
Like I said, it ain't like them letting in immigrants to take your job.
Yeah, they're gonna have to do it.
Nobody's taking the jobs.
So my hope is that people
if we all band together and stood strong and said we're not going back until we met these demands. They met these demands. We could literally shut down the government ourselves.
Well, the government is shut down.
And it would happen quickly. It would happen quickly, guys. I'm telling you.
Which is why
they're nervous right now.
Which is why I'm saying this.
They are nervous. They're nervous that there will be a revolt.
But
if we keep talking about it, it'll happen.
This is why I'm saying this. All of these groups that are out there, trust me. I just my spidey senses are tingling. My hair standing up on the back of my neck, right? All of my experience being an insider tells me this, that all of those groups that are out there marching and protesting to go back to work are being funded in some way.
That's right.
By organizations and companies that recognize that if you do what I'm saying, they would all be shut down. So they said, you know what? We're going to pay some of these people some money to go into these communities and to convince people to go against their own interests right now, to get people to rally around going back to work. But going back to work for what? See, I'm telling you, the government pulled $6.2 trillion out of their ass. After telling you that health care was impossible and that this country would collapse if they gave you health care as a right. Then they turn around and pull $6.2 trillion out of ass. And then they said, oh, that's not going to be enough. So they voted on more. And they're going to vote on more.
Another 200,
and they're going to continue
for another $460 billion.
And they're going to continue to do it, guys. I'm telling you. They're not going to stop. They're going to continue to do it. So you are in the driver's seat. And what they did, they said, you know what? We've got to send some people into these communities to infiltrate this unity that's going on, right? Because there is unity around staying at home, right? People were saying, okay, I'm listening. I'm going to shelter in place. I'm going to stay at home. And they said, no. We have to send in a subversive message that says that there's a conspiracy and you guys should be out in the street. And then, unfortunately, some of you are listening to that. Hold the line. Shelter in place. Things are changing. There is a revolution and you are in control. Understand
Absolutely.
that. Things are a little uncomfortable right now. But listen, things are uncomfortable. I'd rather have things be uncomfortable for this short period of time. And like you said, Darren, it's going to happen very quickly. If you hold the line.
Oh, yeah.
It's going to happen very quickly. Right. But if you cave, you're going to go back to your life for the rest of your life living on a plantation.
Absolutely.
That's what I was saying about the new...
There's other countries out there that don't even have 5-day work weeks. They got 3 and 4 day work weeks. There's a lot of demands and stuff that we could be doing, especially since most of us, the majority, are working from home. So there is no reason that we have to be in an office. You can work from home and everybody can do what? Spend more time with their families. Spend more time on keeping themselves healthy.
Listen, if y'all keep going, you're going to get into
the pollution. In New Jersey, they said the pollution has gone down.
Yes,
like 7%.
This is what I'm saying. So all the things that we've been talking about, right? The emissions, we see that changing. We see the litter on the street change. We see a whole bunch of stuff that's changing because we're sheltering in place and we're exposing a lot of stuff. We're exposing a ton.
This is the wrong time.
This is the perfect time. And as I said before about the new norm, no. Not get back to normal. No, let's establish a new normal. Yeah. Let's start leveling this playing field that has been plaguing us for decades.
All right, last question, guys, because we got 8 minutes to go. All of these colleges, shame on you. $14 billion endowment. $12 billion endowment, $5 billion endowments, and they're taking money. They're taking this stimulus money that could be going to small businesses, money that could be going to people who really need it. These colleges ought to be ashamed of themselves. What say you?
Well, speaking for a person who's working on a doctorate in theology, this coronavirus did not change my tuition. Now, if they're taking all of this money, all this endowment money on this stimulus package, then what they should actually do is start doing some free tuition. Bottom line, if the government is bailing out all these colleges should have free tuition. That means I don't have to pay a dime for me or my child who's going to school or you or your child is going to school right now. Because this what I think they give them for somewhere close to $800 and something billion now for colleges. Yes, that's coming out of my paycheck. So my child should be going to school for free.
So speaking from a person who has been working on her master's for way too long, and my daughter has now surpassed me and has her master's and will be soon going to work on her PhD, I feel the same way that Vincent feels. If they're getting all this money and we're working from home and you have cut down on your overhead of paying for housing and food and stuff like that, they should be giving out free courses towards your degree. Not just free courses for certifications, but courses that will go towards your degree, and everybody should be eligible for it based on whatever the requirements that you need to get in. I've seen some universities have lowered their standards and stated that they're not requiring a GRE or the GMAT because of what's going on, because they can't do the supervised testing. I think more of that should happen because, for one thing, I think the GREs and the GMAT and the LSAT, because I took those too, are a waste of effing time because they have nothing to do with the degree that you're going towards. So I think that it should be free and or reduced considerably to what they're getting right now.
And see, Eric, I'm glad you brought that up because this is part of that revolution that you're talking about. Could you imagine if we all just stood and said, all of the colleges, and listen, until you meet these demands, this is it. We're shutting this down. Man, do you want to see how fast they would be on their
a better opportunity than now for the 99% to take a stand and say, listen, because before all of this happened, think about it. Although you would hear people say nice things about healthcare workers, and nice things about our frontline people that's driving the bus and people delivering and the people in the delis and the grocery stores, now they see that those people are more important than celebrities and entertainers and sports stars because that's who they cherished before them.
Yes. But we have to hold the line. See, we're going to slip back into taking that blue pill, right? Instead of being uncomfortable for a little bit, right? And unplugging ourselves from this matrix and saying, you know what? We're gonna venture out into this new world where we're in control, where we don't allow them to be in control, the few being in control of the many. We're gonna take control of this ship. And we have to, again, I'm saying, look, there's no better time than right now to do that. Hold the line.
Hey, Eric, could we get a few more extra red pills for those Negro whisperers who are going to stand in the way? Because I'm so sick and tired of social media and a couple of people kicking my back end because I'm saying something that's fundamentally right.
Well,
I'm really...
Well, you know what? You know what, though? See, look, I've moved beyond some of that stuff. And because, it's just distractions, right? And I realize the more time I spend in that space, the less time I have to be in this productive space. So I'd rather be in a productive space and helping people who want to move forward. Again, as my father said, those who I won't let die won't let me live. I want to live. So I'm moving forward. I'm over here in this space. And to me, the best line, the best place to be, and this is why I love AOC so much. She's trying to liberate people. You don't hear any other politician saying that.
No.
Not one.
No.
And you got to ask yourself. So understand the condition you're in. Understand how fragile your situation is, and understand who sat over, policies and such for decades and allowed this to erode like this. Right?
That's right.
They want things to go back to normal, to their normal, right? Where you are the commodity to their wealth and to their power. See, a person like AOC says, no, you should have power. Why won't you, I know the answer, it's rhetorical, right? It's because of your deep psychoses. But I'm hoping that some of you will break out of it. Some of you will realize, no, now is the time. Just hold the line.
Do we need to start an online petition? Because I'm telling you, we at the moment now where we can do this because they are looking, this target of opening in a lot of these metropolitan areas are starting now. And some of them are saying May 15th. Some saying, May 1st. Some saying all these different dates. We need to come up with something to start this, to get this revolution moving, man.
Yeah, we'll think about it. We'll think about it over the next couple of days, Darren. I'll come up with something, and then we,
let's do it, brother.
But somebody said to me, they said, "Well, Eric, folks should be protesting against the protests." I said, "Well, then that's counterproductive because you should be sheltering in place, right? So sheltering in place is the protest. You don't want to. If you go outside, then you defeat the." So sheltering in place is the protest, right? So if you don't move, if you say my life is worth more.
Exactly.
Than $8 an hour, right?
And
my life is worth
outside.
more than the measly $1,200 you threw at me. My life is worth more than that. If you dare say that, then you stand to gain more in the end.
Correct.
All right. Well, listen, we had 12 o'clock, Diane. You didn't even have to send me a text message.
Just so you know, I already sent the text message to let you know we had 2 minutes.
Oh, did you? Oh, she did.
As usual, you don't look at your phone. You can't multitask, but you did good.
But I did well today. Right? I did well
now
today.
remind people to share the show.
Everybody, please go and share the show. Please share it. Darren, thank you, man. My prayers are with your wife and your family, man. You know, because it's got to be all of you guys going through this right now.
Yeah, the kids and I are scrambling around. Yeah, but we getting it done, brother. Thank you, man. Thanks for the prayers.
Teamwork.
Amen. Hey, God bless you and keep safe, my brother.
All right,
yes,
guys,
sir, you too,
we're
man.
out.
You guys, God bless you and your family.
Take care.
Thank you.